What's up guys, Barry Gaming here, back with some more Diablo 2 Resurrected, and today I'm going to go over something I've had a ton of questions on, and that is my 0% MagicFind Frenzy Barbarian. So this character can do players 1 ridiculously easy, it can do players 8 ridiculously easy as well. We have max resistance, we have max damage. I've done a ton of testing, I've used multiple different weapons. This setup seems to be pretty much the best I've come across, so we're gonna go over it. I've found the most high runes I think I've ever found. Since release, I probably play on average about 2, maybe 3 hours a day. Some days I don't play at all. But overall, I found about 2 bear runes, 3 jaws, 3 lows, 2 ohms. I found a Sur, a couple chams. The only thing I haven't found is a Zod, but I found ridiculous numbers of high runes. And of course, the other thing you find a ton of is Eth armors and Eth weapons for mercenaries. Now, those still go for the most. Everything has been dropping in value as time goes on and the market gets flooded with uniques and rares and all this other stuff. One thing that seems to hold value are mercenary items right now. So between mercenary items and actual high runes, this build is absolutely amazing. So we're going to jump into it. Let's take a look at our overall gear we're running on this hero. So number 1, I've tested a ton of different weapon combinations. So far, I have found dual grief to be by far, hands down, the most damage setup possible. I was a naysayer. I've tried a main hand grief with an offhand last wish. Yes, I've invested in a last wish to test it out with a might aura, and then I changed my mercenary around to, like, you know, more AR. The one nice thing about grief, if you are only farming places like the pits, is this ignore target defense. You don't have to worry about missing so long as you're level 88 or higher. It's amazing. Now, one thing to note, until we know how the attack speed is broken in this game and if we can hit another frenzy breakpoint, another frame breakpoint, right now the weapon doesn't matter that much. You want a 35 IAS or faster. Going for 40 really doesn't matter. 35 or higher, but really the important part here is that 400 damage. Now, of course, I have this on a 13 ED phase blade, which only has like 4 or 5 extra damage. Getting an ED phase blade is not a big deal, but getting a phase blade is, because when you are frenzying, you are going to break items very fast. If you go with Zerker axes or something like that, I highly suggest phase blade. So my offhand, just a regular base, but again, it has 34 IAS. Offhand speed does not matter with frenzy, and then we have 400 damage on that. So between these two items, we have ridiculous amounts of damage. Now, that does mean this is still the lying character sheet. Your damage will not show properly in this calculation when you use grief weapons, so just completely ignore it. It doesn't matter. Things you do on here aren't a big deal. So next up, we're going to talk about the helmet. We are running an Ariat's face, as every Frenzy Barb really should. It's just really amazing. We are running a 40 ED 9 strength jewel in the helmet. We're not running min or max because, of course, there is the bug with min or max damage. With ED, only having that ED be a multiplicative buff on the opposite of what you have slotted in. So we went with the 9 strength just to keep it nice and easy. This is very important though for hitting your max resistances if that's something you care about. Overall, I can't. It's hard to find anything better for a barbarian, so that's what you go with. For the chest piece, went with fortitude. So of course this is going to be the more end game setup, especially with the dual grief. We'll talk towards the end about like the budget beginner version of this build too, of what to use, but fortitude just hands down 300% enhanced damage. A lot of people kind of naysay that, but until we know about IS breakpoints, it is going to trump out treachery in my opinion. The resistances are nice. Now, one thing to note, technically, if you get 26 or more resistance all res on this, that is optimal. Right now, I don't have that. I'll tell you why here in a little bit when we talk about our charms. But if you can get 26 all res or better, that's going to be the best. I like Archon plate or any light armor. Just want to run as fast as possible with this build. Over to the amulet, High Lord's Wrath, it just can't beat that for damage. You're getting +1 all skills. You're getting 35% deadly strike, which if you can see the damage we're about to do, critting is very, very important. Gloves, hands down, laying on hands or laying of hands is just amazing. The 350% ED to demons is amazing. The 20 IS might matter for a breakpoint down the line, but again, there's really not many other ones you want to run. I mean, you can run some ogre gauntlets if you really want to just do some overall damage, but 350% demons is a lot because I'd say about 60 to 75% of the enemies we are fighting are going to be demons. The rest are undead, so it is what it is. Now, one thing I run on this build is Mavina's belt, and that's because we are building a faster run walk style build. There's a couple other options. You could run like a razor tail here. You could wear, there's a couple different options. It's really up to you what you want to use. The belt is the flex spot in this build. I like it because it also has that mana steal, which means it frees up my ring slot, which we'll talk about that here in a minute. Boots, again, another free spot. You can run Gore Riders. I've run a couple different ones that have 40% faster run walk. Again, very flexible, but again, 15% deadly strike is absolutely huge and amazing. Absolutely love it. You're going to need a Ravenfrost. It doesn't really matter the stats on it. If you can get a 20 dexterity, that's great because that's less points you need to invest into dexterity for your Grief Phase Blades. Phase Blades take 136 dexterity, so if you can get a lot of it from here, that's perfect. The attack rating, again, really doesn't matter if you're doing what we are doing, which is running pits almost exclusively. It comes into play when we're attacking bosses and things like that, but every other mob doesn't really matter. And then we have a very strong offensive ring. Now, lifesteal isn't required here. It really isn't. But what I found to be really great is minimum damage, a high strength number, and then anything else is great. I'm really looking for a high minimum and maximum damage ring with like 20 plus strength. That is optimal for this build in my opinion, so that is what we're going to go for. After that, we're running the 3-20-20 Hellfire Torch. We're running a 18-29 Anti-Charm, which is great. And then the rest of our inventory is going to be filled up with faster run walk, maximum damage, AR. Now, technically the AR is not required, but the way to get the most maximum damage is sadly on the sharp and the fine affixes for small and grand charm. So in reality, if we really want to be optimal, we want to run 7% faster run walk, 10 maximum damage. Again, this is more of a budget, only going for 9 because the price between 9 and 10 is a lot. And the same thing on our small charms. We're going to run 3-3x. It doesn't matter what the AR is. We just want the 3 faster run walk and the 3 maximum damage. If you can't afford the 3s, I would go for 2s. If you can't really afford the maximum damage at all, if you want to try to replicate this build and maybe not Player's 8 version, 3% faster run walk is absolutely amazing. But that's pretty much filling up our whole inventory. One thing I did say I would mention is if you did get one more resistance point on your fortitude, you wouldn't have to run what I'm running here, which is a shimmering small charm of inertia for 4 AR. You'll notice if I take it off, I lose 1% cold and poison resistance. If we just had one more point on this, I could fill this with a little bit more damage. Is it really necessary? No, but I mean, this is just a fun build anyway, so it is what it is. Now, what we're essentially doing for points is we are putting points into vitality until we are just over 1,000 life without battle orders. That is plenty of life for what we're doing, and actually sometimes it's a little much. I could probably cut back on that, but buffed up, we're at about 2 to 2,100 HP is more than enough. You're never going to need more than that in this build. I run Player's 8. Pits is perfect. It's easy. Because one thing that we're doing is we have a very high defense number because of this fortitude. When we're in combat, it goes through the roof, and we have like a 10 to 20% chance to get hit by most things in the pit, which means you're not even taking damage. And we're dumping the rest of the points into strength. More damage means faster clear time. If you don't need the survivability or the attack rating, it still works out. I mean, we still have almost 10,000 AR unbuffed with this type of setup. So I wouldn't really prioritize it. You don't really need it, but getting your max resistances is very helpful. Now, one thing that we are running is, of course, our combat masteries. We're maxing out sword mastery because we want that damage bonus. putting 1 point in increased stamina, 1 point increased speed, 1 point iron skin, and 1 point natural resistances. 1 point in that should get you to the point where you're just maxed out on all resistances. Now over here, we're going down the middle here to get 1 point in Berserk, because there are, of course, those physical immunes. If you're not running something like Lawbringer, 1 point of Berserk means you're just going to one-tap that physical immune mob anyway, so it's a nice little workaround. Maxing out double swing for that synergy with Frenzy, and of course maxing out Frenzy. Now this is where some of the stuff you can kind of tweak up. Some people like having 1 point in Leap just for some mobility. For what we do, I don't really find a need. Maybe if you did Chaos Sanctuary, it would be nice for jumping across the River of Flame. I used to do that. Also, maybe running Find Item, but the fact that I don't really care as much about the loot, I would just want to kill as fast as possible. I don't care about Horkin, the uniques and stuff like that. I sometimes have this, I sometimes don't. If you want to run Trav, the Council, of course, you want to go 1 point in this. But essentially, you're only going to be maxing out battle orders. 1 point in Howl, 1 point in Shout, 1 point Battle Command. You're going to maybe get 1 point in Find Potion and Find Item, and then you're going to dump the rest into Taunt, because Frenzy, of course, has a Taunt synergy as well. So one thing I actually almost forgot to go over is the Mercenary, because the Mercenary is a big part of this build as well. So kind of the staple here, we're using an Andes mainly just for some lifesteal, make sure he stays alive. The increased attack speed is always great. We're running a Sacred Armor Fortitude, which is going to make him extremely tanky. He gets maxed out resistances, it makes his damage a little bit better, but in reality our Mercenary's not for damage. Now it does still show the incorrect one since we are in Hell difficulty, but this is a Might Mercenary. This is Might from Act 2 Nightmare. And the one thing we're running on this build is a Pride Colossus Vulge. So yes, we got a level 20 concentration aura. We have a Might aura. They do stack, which increases more of our multiplicative damage that we have on this build. So if you're considering doing this, I would probably suggest a Pride, because that double is almost like doubling the damage bonus you're getting from your Mercenary, which in reality, we just don't care what our Mercenary is doing. Just stay near us, hopefully. Don't use too heavy of an armor, because I used to have a Shadow Plate at one point, and it makes him run pretty slow, it seems. So try to go with a lighter armor on him, but enough that his defense is still way up through the roof. And yeah, the Pride Colossus Vulge, absolutely key in this build as well. So as far as the hero setup goes, that's pretty much what I do. I have Berserk on my left click, Frenzy on the right click. This is the most boomer build you could possibly do. You right click and that is all you have to do. I'll show you a quick little just demonstration here of what this looks like on our run. We're only in players 1 right now, but we're going to buff up. You'll see we're about 2200 HP, but besides that, we're just holding down right click. Like we don't even need to touch anything else. One hand is all you need for killing. You just keep moving on to the next target. And that is pretty much it. So I'm going to show you guys a couple runs now so you guys get the little setup. But you'll notice the run speed on this build, even when we're not frenzied, is already a very quick movement speed. This is to hopefully keep up, you know, since we don't have Enigma in the setup. Fortitude is a much cheaper version of this. But you'll notice once we actually do get ramped up on our speed, I've actually been running with one of my friends without like super high FCR on their Paladin, literally running past them faster than them, and it's just a nice little thing. I love the run speed. It's just one of the things that makes this build so enjoyable. And even if you don't, because I mean, you notice, you know how slow you run when you don't have faster run walk. This right here is still blazing speed when you compare it to the average player. So let's jump into it. I'm going to show you guys some little things here. If you guys want to see more about this build, let me know. Leave a comment down below. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time.